Now here's a question for you. Do you think every American president spoke English fluently from the day they were born? Well, the truth might surprise you. One U.S. president actually grew up speaking a different language entirely. Another held private conversations with his wife in Chinese inside the White House. And there was even a so-called linguistic genius who could write Latin with one hand and Greek with the other at the same time. Across 45 men and 47 presidencies, more than 20 spoke at least one foreign language. But here's the real debate. Did all those languages make them better leaders? Or is the true measure of a president not how many tongues he speaks, but how he uses his words to lead, inspire, and persuade? Stick with me as we uncover the stories, and you can decide for yourself who was America's greatest multilingual president. If we had to single out a group of presidents who earned genuine respect worldwide for their linguistic talent, it would be this crew of true polyglots. The men who didn't just speak foreign languages, but thought, debated, and even dreamed in them. John Quincy Adams, the polyglot of the White House. The son of John Adams, he grew up amid the embassies of Europe. By the time he was a teenager, Adams spoke fluent French and German, read Latin and Greek with ease, and later mastered Russian. He's widely regarded as the most multilingual president in American history. And here's the key. He didn't study languages just to order dinner in Paris. He learned them to read philosophy, law, and diplomacy in the original text. That mastery made him one of the finest diplomats the young republic ever produced before he even stepped foot in the Oval Office. Thomas Jefferson, the global thinker. Jefferson wasn't only the author of the Declaration of Independence. He was a full-blown language enthusiast. He spoke French, Italian, and Spanish, and read Latin and Greek. Jefferson even dabbled in Anglo-Saxon and Arabic, convinced that languages were the keys to unlock humanity's history. Historians argue that Jefferson's Enlightenment ideals, his openness, his cosmopolitan outlook, sprang directly from this deep, hands-on engagement with the words of other cultures. James A. Garfield, the ambidextrous scholar. Now this is a party trick that'll never be taught. James Garfield could write in Latin with one hand while writing Greek with the other, simultaneously. Although his presidency was tragically cut short by assassination in his first year, Garfield left behind the reputation of a scholar-statesman. His linguistic flair reflects the rigorous 19th century classical education, when mastering Greek and Latin was considered the pinnacle of intellectual achievement. Woodrow Wilson, the scholar in the Oval Office. Before becoming the 28th president, Wilson served as president of Princeton University. He commanded French, German, Latin, and Greek. And during World War I, those languages became more than scholarly trophies. They were practical tools for working with America's European allies. Wilson is often remembered not just as a politician, but as a genuine intellectual. And his linguistic skills were part of what shaped his global vision.
But it must be a
For these presidents, languages were not parlor tricks or resume padding. They were tools to broaden vision, to unlock knowledge, to speak to the wider world. Time and again, history shows that leaders fluent in other tongues often carry a more global, open-minded, and multidimensional perspective. If you could choose, which foreign language would you most want an American president to master today in our age of globalization? If the multilingual geniuses earned our respect for sheer intellect, this next group earns a different reaction: shock, delight, and a good dose of surprise. These are the presidents who didn't just know languages, they brought rare, even unexpected tongues into the halls of the White House. Martin Van Buren, the president who didn't speak English first. Born in a Dutch community in upstate New York, Van Buren grew up speaking Dutch at home. In fact, he's the only president in U.S. history whose first language was not English. Imagine that. The nation we think of as synonymous with English had a president who spoke Dutch before he spoke a word of English. Far from being a handicap, this bilingual background helped Van Buren connect with immigrant communities, and gave him a deeper appreciation for America's cultural diversity, even in the early 19th century. Herbert Hoover speaking Chinese in the White House. Now here's a plot twist. Herbert Hoover, before he was president, lived in China for several years as a mining engineer. He and his wife, Lu, became fluent enough in Mandarin that they sometimes chatted privately in Chinese, even inside the White House. Staff recalled the Hoovers conspiring in Mandarin so no one else could follow along. That's one of the most unusual linguistic footnotes in presidential history, and it shows just how tied Hoover once was to Asia before his political career took off. Barack Obama childhood echoes of Indonesia. Long before becoming the 44th president, Obama spent part of his childhood in Jakarta. He attended local schools, picked up Bahasa Indonesia, and could hold basic conversations as a kid. He didn't stay fluent into adulthood, but the experience left its mark. Obama himself has said that those formative years gave him a broader, more empathetic worldview, an ability to understand and connect with cultures far beyond America's borders. These three stories remind us that language isn't always about skill. It can be part of identity, history, and context. Van Buren embodies the immigrant roots and diversity of America. Hoover highlights America's early ties to Asia. Obama reflects a modern, globalized leadership, shaped by cross-cultural childhood experience. If the multilinguals were scholars, and the rare language presidents were surprises, this next group used foreign languages as political weapons, tools to build relationships, inspire trust, and etch unforgettable moments into the history of U.S. diplomacy. Franklin D. Roosevelt winning allies with a few words. FDR, the only president elected 4 times, is remembered for the New Deal and for leading America through World War II. Less remembered is his ability to use French and German in diplomatic settings. Roosevelt wasn't a polyglot, but he was pragmatic. He knew that a few words in the right tongue could break the ice with European leaders, soften tense moments, and build rapport at a time when trust was everything. John F. Kennedy, when language became symbol. Kennedy spoke decent French and occasionally used it abroad, but his most legendary linguistic moment came in 1963 in West Berlin. Standing before a divided city, he declared in German, "Ich bin ein Berliner." Just 4 words, but they became a rallying cry of solidarity, a Cold War symbol that echoed around the globe. It's living proof that sometimes one well-timed phrase in a foreign language can outlast volumes of speeches in English. Jimmy Carter, the Spanish-speaking president. Carter didn't just memorize a few polite phrases. He actively delivered entire speeches in Spanish, especially in Latin America. Whether in Cuba or South America, Carter made it a point to greet and speak to locals in their language, earning both surprise and respect. He understood something timeless. Speaking to someone in their language is the deepest form of respect. George W. Bush, Spanish for the people. Bush never claimed fluency, but growing up in Texas, he picked up enough Spanish to sprinkle it into his campaigns. A quick greeting here, a familiar phrase there, and it worked. It wasn't about grammar, it was about connection. His occasional Spanish remarks resonated with Latino communities and gave him a down-to-earth touch on the campaign trail. This group shows us that foreign languages can be potent diplomatic tools. Roosevelt used them to maintain alliances in WW2. Kennedy turned them into symbols that outlived him. Carter built cultural bridges across the Americas. Bush used them to win hearts and votes closer to home. In today's world, which foreign language would be most valuable for an American president to master? For diplomacy on the globe, not every American president was a language prodigy. In fact, most of them spoke just one tongue, English, and yet that never stopped them from becoming great leaders or from taking the United States to the heights of global power. George Washington leading by deeds, not dictionaries. The father of his country wasn't a linguist. He didn't speak French, the diplomatic language of his era. But Washington led with personal credibility, judgment, and sheer force of character. He proved that you don't need a stack of foreign vocab flashcards to make history. You need the ability to inspire trust. Abraham Lincoln, the master of his mother tongue. Lincoln never studied a foreign language, but he wielded another one, plain-spoken English. His Gettysburg Address, just 272 words, has outlived entire libraries. Lincoln showed that mastering the cadence and clarity of your native tongue can move hearts, stir souls, and hold a nation together. Ronald Reagan, the language of images and belief. Reagan, the actor-president, wasn't multilingual either, but he was a virtuoso communicator. His line in Berlin, Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall, reverberated across the globe, proof that sometimes the right phrase in your own language can carry more weight than a dozen in someone else's. Donald Trump and Joe Biden, English only, global reach. The two most recent presidents, Trump and Biden, don't speak foreign languages. Yet one could shake world markets with 280 characters on Twitter, and the other has steered America through a turbulent world order. Their examples remind us that political power and communication aren't always about how many languages you know, but how you wield the one you've got. Foreign languages open doors, but not speaking them has never barred an American president from greatness. What matters most is the ability to use words, whether in English or otherwise, to persuade, inspire, and lead. So what do you think? Does a leader need multiple languages to succeed, or is it enough to master the one that speaks straight to people's hearts? For more than 2 centuries, every American president has walked into the White House with a different set of tools. Some were language prodigies, fluent in Latin and Greek. Some brought childhood languages like Dutch, Chinese, or Indonesian. Some turned foreign phrases into weapons of diplomacy, just a handful of words that shook the world. And many spoke only English, yet still carried the nation to superpower status. Languages are a gift. They unlock knowledge, build bridges, and foster trust. But the true power of leadership doesn't lie in how many languages you speak. It lies in how you use your words, even if it's only in your native tongue, to move people and change history. A single line can alter an election. A single speech can awaken a nation. And sometimes just a few words in the right place at the right moment can write a whole new chapter of history. So here's my question to you. In today's world, if an American president were fluent in Chinese, Russian, or Arabic, how might that reshape global politics? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear your perspective. If you enjoyed this dive into history, don't forget to hit like, share it with a friend, and subscribe for more untold stories of America's past. Every click and comment helps keep these conversations alive.